Good day. I'm junior researcher Adam Southgate, and my current role within the Order of Merlin is to create these instructional videos for our wider freelance hunter community. As always, today we'll begin with our general announcements, and then we'll move on to the lesson proper. Firstly, I'm very excited to announce that the Pinocchio program will be starting human trials for their new weaponized prosthetic limb program. As you know, the Pinocchio program up until now has built fantastic replacement limbs for hunters who have lost theirs to the many horrors we face. This new generation of semi-living prosthetic, however, may prove to be even an upgrade to a standard limb, as new techniques have allowed for metal blades and even single-shot guns to be fitted within the limb. The hope is that with sufficient training, the act of using the weapon within the limb can be done without losing control of the limb. I would also like to apologise to all those with a Pinocchio prosthetic who, no doubt having been reminded of their enchanted wooden limb, have temporarily lost control of it. Secondly, the iron collectors have ramped up their activity within the South Wales area. If you are unaware, the iron collectors, or more commonly known as the scrap metal merchants, are a secretive organisation hell-bent on the construction of what they refer to as the Iron God. The issue for us is that to the common public, they're useful at best, removing unwanted bicycles and white goods, and a nuisance at worst, due to their haunting calls that drift across the landscape. Because of their decentralized nature, it has proven impossible to infiltrate or stop them, and as we've seen time and time again, new iron collectors seem to pop up at random with seemingly no connection to any other previous ones. The Order is asking all its hunters to hide any and all iron products they own from them, and to convince family and friends not in the know to do the same. We cannot allow them to build their terrible metallic god. So, today's lesson will be on the Deal Maker, also known as one of the many aspects of the devil. To begin with, and already stated, the Deal Maker is an aspect of the larger entity known as the devil. Coming from the Abrahamic sphere, the Deal Maker is actually one of the less overtly powerful entities coming from said sphere. He lacks the overwhelming burning aura that many from that sphere possesses, and does not create the mind-destroying sense of bliss that, for example, a principality does. This does not mean, however, that the Deal Maker isn't a highly dangerous entity. He has appeared in many different places throughout human history and in a great many forms. As his name suggests, the Deal Maker is unable to act upon anyone without first offering an exchange. This may make you feel at first glance that means he is simple to avoid, however, he will always hide his true nature until after the deal is complete. He also appears to be able to know the form to take to best disarm his targets, as if he has a window into the minds of his would-be victims. He will wait, embedding himself within the social circle of a victim for years, though he doesn't seem to cause the circumstances that will make them feel they require aid, but he does seem to know when that will happen. A deal with the entity will always have one of three kinds of payments. Firstly, the curse. Probably the most overtly horrifying, this has led to a wide variety of awful outcomes for all that have paid this particular price. The English KSG recently had a case of one such cursed individual. A charity marathon runner who, thinking he was talking to a more experienced runner, expressed how he wanted to win to inspire his daughter who was currently battling with leukemia. The Deal Maker, as the experienced runner, asked the man if he truly wanted to win. And if he did, the only cost would be that he'd have to run faster than he knew he could, that he'd have to push himself beyond his limits and keep going faster. The runner, thinking the more experienced man was being nice and trying to inspire him, agreed. The unfortunate runner won the race, but after his body continued to speed up, and not just his movements, but his organs and even his breathing. By the end, every bone had broken, every organ had ruptured, and his skin had torn apart. The worst part of this case is that it was calculated that from his extremely quickened perspective, the entire process would have taken months, when in reality it only took 2 days for him to die. Secondly, calamity or change. The best example for this would be the fall of the Russian Tsar. Tsar Nicholas II's rule was rife with bad decisions and misfortune, all culminating with the house arrest of him and his family, and on the 17th of July 1918, him and his family were executed by firing squad. What we know, due to the journal of Nicholas's youngest daughter, Anastasia, is while under house arrest, a very well-dressed man asked the young Anastasia why she was crying. When she explained that it was because everyone hated her father and that she just wanted peace for him, the man agreed and stated that he would bring peace to her father. To be fully honest, we're unsure whether or not this was the deal maker. However, given the chaos and suffering that followed in Russia, it is a good bet. Finally, abduction. Probably the one with the most unanswered questions around it, this would suggest that the dealmaker spirits the one who made the deal with him away into the Abrahamic sphere. This raises many unsettling questions, as we only have evidence for entities from other spheres entering ours. The idea that we could be taken to one of their spheres where our natural laws do not apply is too terrifying to think about. Now for the main point of this lesson, because unlike almost everywhere else in the world that is breached by the Abrahamic sphere, the dealmaker does not enter the country of Wales, though he used to. A great many stories have been written about the event that caused this, and it has long since passed into legend, so much so that we truly are in the dark about the specifics. Thankfully, however, certain details remain constant throughout each retelling. I'm going to read for you one such story to give you the most basic idea of what transpired, though please remember the true events were most likely far darker. The devil, feeling it was time again for him to walk the earth, peered over his map of the world. Naturally, it was etched into the belly of a horrendously fat king who had eaten himself into the grave while letting his people starve. The devil really liked the obese king. His name was Gerald, and his belly served as the perfect shape to model the earth. "Where, oh where shall I go this time?" asked the devil to no one in particular. "Well, my despicable one, have you considered France? I hear it's lovely this time of year," suggested Gerald. The devil rubbed his chin for a moment, tutting. "No, you just want me to go there because you've never liked the French," said the devil while raising one crooked eyebrow. "Just for that, I'm going to your home. Britain, wasn't it? No one tricks the devil, Gerald. Especially my map, even if you are a rather good map," chuckled the devil with an edge of menace that could slice stone. Gerald sighed. "Sorry, my vile lord, but you can't blame an old sinner for trying." The devil looked unconvinced. "Yes, well, let's have a look at where on your pitiful island I should grace with my resplendent presence." The devil ran his crooked finger along Gerald's podgy belly, looking over the tiny island. Wait a minute. Why is there a border here?" the devil asked, sounding quite confused. Gerald craned his neck to look at his perfectly spherical stomach. That's Wales, my malevolent lord," said Gerald, taken a bit aback, but also none too surprised. Not many people knew of that damp and soggy place. "Wait, you mean the big fish? My word, how many are there to make up that much of the island?" asked the devil, genuinely excited by something he'd never seen before. No, my eternally malodorous lord. That's just the name of the place. It means foreigners," said Gerald. "What kind of people call themselves foreigners? That's very bizarre," asked the devil, looking rather confused. "Oh, no, they don't call themselves that. That's what we named them, after we invaded. explained Gerald.
I think you may be confused by the meaning of the word foreigners there, since you were the ones coming from a foreign land, but no matter.
The devil felt good explaining to Gerald how he'd gotten something wrong. He really didn't like being corrected. Wise as always, my stupendous lord, nodded Gerald, not really meaning it.
Also, I notice your jibe about me being smelly when you called me malodorous. That's another 200 years as my map for you,
finished the devil. To be honest, he was glad. If Gerald hadn't done that, he'd have to have made up some other offense to keep Gerald as his map. And that really was too much paperwork.
Wales,
thought the devil. He'd never been there before. Come to think of it, it was the only country he hadn't ever been to. It's about time, the devil thought, that he graced this tiny, insignificant nation with his illustrious figure. From the deepest patch of the darkest shadow of an old gnarled oak tree, the devil clambered up from beneath the earth. He tugged at his waist, attempting to shift the skin he had borrowed from one of the sinners below. Norman, he thought. That was the fellow's name. Norman had been damned for not running into a fire to save his wife. The devil initially thought Norman's damnation had been a mistake, until he'd read the reason. It turned out Norman hadn't attempted to save his wife, not out of fear of death or pain, but rather because he didn't want his beautiful face to be damaged by the flames. He'd even had the cheek to make the devil swear not to damage his skin before he allowed him to borrow it. The devil had wanted to mark it just to prove a point to Norman, but even the devil had to admit it was a work of art, and if the devil had only one thing, it was good taste. Looking around, he found himself near a large gorge, with a road on either side, but with no way of safely crossing, a river running through the bottom. As he scanned his surroundings, he noticed something quite strange. A rather soggy and perturbed cow standing on the other side of the gorge. Before he could process, he felt a tap on his back, and something say, "Excuse me, sir." In a start, he spun around to see the oldest woman he'd ever witnessed. Her skin couldn't be described as wrinkly. It was closer to a stack of folded laundry, large folds of skin sitting one atop the other, each as thin as ancient paper. Her eyes, only one of which was looking at him, the other seemingly very interested in a small stone on the ground, were yellow as egg yolk. Her voice seemed to creep from deep within her rattling chest, sneaking upon you like death itself. The devil was smitten. He loved to collect unique and fascinating things, and he had never witnessed anything like this old woman before. But how to get her soul? "Good sir, I implore you. My cow was spooked and ran away from me, and now she's across the gorge. If there is anything you can do to aid me in my plight, I would be ever so grateful," whispered the decrepit old woman. "And there it is," thought the devil. "I've got her."
"Well, my good lady, please return to this spot on the morrow, and I will have constructed for you a bridge to your cow that you can simply walk across and collect your bovine," said the devil, his voice dripping with corrupted charm. "That's wonderful, good sir. Thank you so much. But what can I do to repay you for your kind deed?" asked the old woman. The devil smirked. "My request is simple, my good lady. I will take the first living thing to cross this bridge as my property," said the devil, his voice filled with smarm. The old lady, on her way home, leaving the strange man to his work, was confused. If she brought the cow across the bridge, would he claim ownership of it? Or would he claim ownership of her, since she would need to cross the bridge first to collect the cow? An idea began to form in her ancient mind. The morning of the next day, the devil was finally finished. It had taken the entire night, but it was finally perfect.
It had been a massive amount of work to cut the stones correctly, but by the end they'd finally slotted together just right. The devil could not abide shoddy workmanship. The old woman arrived just around lunchtime with a small yappy dog that seemed to be nearly as ancient as she was. She offered the devil a sandwich, but before he could respond,
"This is amazing. I can't believe you did all of this in just one day,"
she said. She marveled at the beauty of the bridge, every stone cut and placed perfectly. It was, in a word, sublime.
Now, my good lady, please, collect your cow,
said the devil, still chewing the rather good cheese and onion sandwich.
"Ah, yes, I shall,"
said the old woman, stepping towards the bridge. Before she placed a foot onto it, though, she reached into her pack, pulling out another sandwich. The devil raised his crooked eyebrow. Perhaps she hadn't had time to eat herself before she headed back here, he thought. Suddenly, the old woman threw the sandwich to the other side of the bridge. It landed with an audible splat. A yappy little dog, without a moment's hesitation, exploded with speed across the beautiful bridge and straight to the other side, where he began enjoying the sandwich/ballistic projectile. The devil's mouth fell to the floor. Before he could collect himself, the old woman began.
"Now, remember, he needs a bath twice a day, and you'll need to brush out the knots. Oh, and don't let him eat beans or eggs, otherwise he'll keep you and himself up with the sounds of his farting,"
explained the old woman.
"But I don't understand,"
stammered the devil.
"Oh, well, you see, though it hurts to lose him, without my cow I'll starve and won't be able to look after my little dog besides, so at least this way he goes to a good home,"
said the old woman with a warm smile.
"I don't want your bloody dog," exploded the devil. "You were supposed to cross the bridge first," he finished.
"Oh, well, I'm flattered, young man, but I'm far too old for relationships like that now,"
said the old woman, blushing slightly.
"Forget it," screamed the devil. "I'm never coming back to this accursed place again, and you can keep your mangy, flea-ridden mutt. I'm going home."
With that, the devil leapt back into the shadow of the tree, melting into the floor. Now, obviously, this story is most likely a million miles away from the true events of what transpired. However, we know for certain a few elements within the story are true. In every retelling of the story, it's an old woman who beats the dealmaker. Since around the approximate time this event transpired, the dealmaker has stopped coming to Wales, and the bridge that he made still stands today. Now, there is always a possibility that the dealmaker himself created the story and created his own absence from Wales as part of some much larger scheme, though this seems unlikely due to his prideful nature. Similar strategies have been attempted in other nations to test the validity of the story and to also rid these nations of his presence. However, so far, all attempts have ended with disastrous consequences. So, either the entity's guard is up, or something far stranger took place on that day. Today's lesson has been more of a history class than anything else, as unless you plan to emigrate, you most likely will never have any dealings with the dealmaker. I do, however, feel that it is good to be informed, as our long reprieve from him would appear to be at his discretion, and the actions or inactions of any entity cannot be taken at face value. But that is all I have for you today. I hope you all took the broader lesson to heart. With Arthur's might and Merlin's wisdom, happy April Fools.